Do you want to add FT8 to your true SDX? Here's how you can do it with just your cell phone and a USB cable. Next on 883K On The Go. After putting together my compact HF Go kit that's based upon a true SDX radio, I wanted to add the capability of doing FT8 in addition to the CW and single sideband that the radio is capable of. And looking around, I found a program called FT8CN, which is written by a Chinese ham, which is not only can interface to a whole bunch of other radios, but it can also interface to the true SDX and be able to take the audio off of the USB port that the latest version of the firmware 2.00X is putting out and do FT8 operations. Now, I have not made any FT8 contacts with my true SDX and FT8, but I've set it up and tested that I am receiving data and able to transmit data. So I'm going to give you a rundown on what you need to do to set yourself up to do FT8 with just a cell phone, a USB cable, and your true SDX. First things first is you do need to update your true SDX to version 2.00X. Now that's still considered a beta version of the software. The latest official version is 2.00I. So follow the instructions on updating the firmware within here, and it will only take you a few minutes to do. One thing you absolutely must do that I have found out by accident is if you have previously with the 2.00I software and calibrated the RF output of this radio, you need to write that value down. Let me repeat that. You need to write that value down. I didn't. Because when I first connected the true SDX to a computer with cat control to try to read back the frequency and control the frequency of the radio, I was finding that the radio was resetting quite frequently as the communications was going back and forth, and I was only getting it to read once or twice from the radio to the logging program that I was using. And this was N1MM, DX-Lab Suite, and N3FJP AC log. All of them had the same problem. As I was trying to adjust the volume that was spitting out the speaker, which was a little bit on the high side, I used the shortcut to adjust the volume and pressing down on the encoder knob and adjusting the volume. Well, that was while the radio was connected to one of the logging programs, and it did a operation that caused the radio to reset, which completely blew away the RF calibration value. The plus side, there is an upside to that, is that was the trick to get the communications to work properly with the computer. And digging a little bit deeper, I did find some comments about that if you go from 2.00I or any of the earlier versions to the latest version 2.00X, you'll find that you do need to do a reset on the radio to make sure all of its internal parameters are set. It wasn't too difficult for me to recalibrate the radio, and this time I have written the value down. To use this with my phone, I just needed a micro USB to USB-C, which is what is on my phone. If you happen to have an older phone, and these are only Android phones, by the way, if you happen to have an older phone with a micro USB, you can get a micro USB to micro USB cable. And this particular one is about 3 feet or 1 meter long. I wanted a little bit of separation that it wouldn't be all scrunched down. You can run potentially with a shorter cable, and then if that would also reduce any potential possibility of RF getting in on this cable, but USB cables I think are normally shielded anyway. The next step in using the true SDX for FT8 is to set it to upper sideband mode, as well as open up the bandwidth to the maximum of the radio, which is 4 kilohertz. Thereafter, I'm going to demonstrate how I installed FT8CN on my phone and show you a quick bit of decoding and how to set it up for CQ. One unfortunate thing is very little of the user manual has been translated to English. It is mostly still written in Chinese. But if some searching of the web, you can find some tips on how to use it. Without much further delay, I'm going to show you how I installed FT8CN on my cell phone and how to configure it quickly, as well as set up and receiving FT8 data, as well as getting it to transmit. Hey, by the way, if you find my videos useful and informative for helping you get yourself to operate out in the field instead of always being in your ham shack in your house, why don't you consider subscribing? That surely helps out the channel. The easiest way to set the mode and bandwidth for me is through the menu. It means I don't have to remember all the unique special key presses on the radio. So press menu, and we're already in the mode 1.2 menu item. Click the encoder, and then you can, go through the different modes, and there it is, upper sideband. Now we're going to press menu again to get out, and I'm just going to lower the volume there by pressing in on the encoder and rotating it counterclockwise. To set the bandwidth, again, you go press menu if you're not already in the menu system, rotate to menu item 1.3, which is filter bandwidth, and you see my radio is currently already set to 4 kilohertz, 4K0. If you want to change that, you would press menu, and then you can lower it or increase it. Now I usually use like 500 hertz for CW, and 2 or 3 kilohertz or 2.5 kilohertz if I do voice operations, though I've only done a quick test of voice on this radio. Pressing enter will save it, and if you press menu again, well, you go back into saving it, press menu will also save that value and get you out. And if you see just under the USB on the right side, it also says 4K0. And the flashing on the display is just due to the camera's refresh rate versus the display refresh rate on the true SDX. So the first step in using FT8CN with your true SDX is to install it on your Android tablet or phone. As I already have it installed on my phone, I'm going to demonstrate installing it on my Android tablet, and the process will be the same, particularly if you have the latest versions or close to the latest version of the Android operating system. So on your device, go to your favorite search engine. In this case, I'm using Google on the Samsung internet browser, and I'm just going to type in FT8CN Charlie November and search on that, and it's going to point me to, at the top of the list here, at a site called GitHub, and N0BOY and FT8CN run FT8 on your Android. Now, GitHub is a service that many programs use to store intermediate copies of their software that they are developing. It's also commonly known as a version control system. I use a similar system at work, though it's not Git. It's very similar to Git, and it happens to be Mercurial. We go ahead and select it. Now, as FT8CN is actually written by BG7YOZ and hosted by N0BOY, you will see information about it in both Chinese and English. But on this page, you want to go to the right side about midway down, and you'll see releases, and it's all the various releases of the program, and the latest version is 0.93. And all you want to do is click on it, and it'll bring you to the actual release page for it. We'll show you what changes were incorporated in that in that release in both Chinese and English. And you want to go near the bottom, and you will see the file name .apk, and that is the installation file. And you just want to tap it. Your Android will ask you if you want to download it. Go ahead and hit download, and it's double checking the file name here. And it's starting to download, and right now this is being saved in the default download directory for my tablet, which is tablet/download. We'll be able to see that from my files. Now, if you hit open file fast enough, it will start the installation process and permission to install downloaded packages that did not come from the Google Play Store. I didn't hit it quick enough there, but we can go to your Android's My Files, which is conveniently on the menu bar at the bottom of my screens. And I go to downloads, and there it is at the top of the list here. As you can see, I did have it previously downloaded. Click that, and it will ask you for your security, and your phone currently isn't allowed to install unknown apps from this source. You can change this in settings, so we'll go to settings. It'll bring you up to the selection underneath My Files, Install Unknown Apps. Turn that on. Now you can go ahead and click install, and the application will install, and it is done. So we can hit open here, and you also have a menu icon in the menu thing. For some reason it did not open, so we're going to just go straight to my menu system. And there it is at the bottom row here. Kind of looks like a steering wheel with a sleeping behind the wheel icon. I'm not sure the rationale for that, but I'm sure there's might be a little bit of an inside joke there. We're going to hit FT8CN. It'll bring it up, and it's going to ask you to access your device's location. Now, FT8CN will use this to you can tap a button within the setup screen to automatically get your grid square of your location. And having operated portably a couple of times, starting to call CQ and noticing that I forgot to update my grid square, it's nice to have that feature. So I'm going to hit while using the app. Allow FT8 to record audio. Yes, you need that, so it will grab the audio that's coming in over the USB connection. And then finally to connect to and determine the relative position of nearby devices, and go ahead and allow that. And here it brings you to your setup screen. And we're going to continue, and I'll show you exactly how I've set up my FT8CN on my phone. Okay, now here we are on my Android phone. Let's see exactly how I have FT8CN set up for use with my True SDX. And it's the same version, 0.93, that we downloaded on my tablet. And we're going to go to settings in this case, and we're going to see that I have my call sign obviously as AA3K. The CQ modifier is POTA, which is what I do mostly in the field. Grid square currently is FN20, where my home QTH is located. I've left the audio frequency unchanged, the transmit delay unchanged, and if either of those were adjusted by setting the FT8CN application to interface with the True SDX, then fine. Let's see now, time offset 0.5 seconds, and you can synchronize the time directly through the phone network here. Again, I've left everything the same. Control is CAT, connection type is USB, and once I set the True SDX audio over CAT, and if you select that button, you can see in the bottom it is there. It will also automatically set the 115,200 baud rate. Don't worry about the CIV, that's if you're using ICOM's interface. I have currently fast decode. Ignore the transmit watchdog, and no response, stopped. Now I have not made any changes for those. What is nice is that on all of these items you can hit this I field and it will give you a little pop-up help screen. Enter your call sign, amateur radio call sign is required, modifier, the CQ may be followed by a modifier with 3 decimal digits or 1 to 4 letters, example CQ POTA, call sign grid square. And within FT8CN on any of these screens you can always hit the get the latest version button. Currently we know that FT8CN has not been updated since January of 2025. Just tap anywhere outside that box and it will clear, and we are good to go. We have a USB-C to USB micro cable, which we've got it already plugged into the phone and we're going to plug it into the True SDX. And when you do so, FT8CN will pop up, and you might have to, the phone might ask you what program you want to run when you set that, when you plug the cable in. Mine has been doing it automatically. And you will see, please select a serial port. There should only be one listed, and you select that one. You can see rig connection successful, current frequency 14.074 megahertz. And if we turn the phone on its side, we'll see the spectrum and the audio that's coming in right now. And here we have some decodes coming up. Now, I'm not going to teach you how to use FT8CN here, but if you tap on one of these, it will, there's additional ones that came in. Let's tap and hold, and we can hit call, and it should start the process. And as you can see on the bottom, it's calling KB9DED. Now, the antenna does not have the best SWR, so I'm going to cancel that somehow. I'll turn off the megaphone there. But I have checked this, and it has transmitted a message, a CQ message, that my home station did pick up and decode. So it does work. You will see the radio going between receive and transmit. And I do need to play with this to understand how it works, make sure I have a good match to the antenna, and to play with FT8 on the phone here. But this does give me a very, very portable setup. All right, let's take a look at calling CQ from FT8CN. The easiest way that I have found so far is to hit the calling button down here, then hit CQ, which will bring up one of your standard messages, the 6th message, which is CQ POTA in this case, since I've set the modifier up, and my call sign, and I'm currently in grid FN20. Additionally, right now I do not have my cell phone connected to my true SDX. In the upper right corner, you'll see a grayed out loudspeaker. So that means right now FT8CN will not be transmitting anything. If you tap on it, it'll turn white, indicating it's armed for transmission. And at the start of the next FT8 cycle, and now it'll actually start transmitting the FT8, your CQ. It'll start transmitting your FT8 CQ right now. And it will do that on the 15 seconds. Now pause, go into the receive cycle, and it should go back at the next cycle back into transmitting again to keep calling until you find somebody that answers your CQ, your FT8 CQ. And here we go into the next transmit cycle for 15 seconds. Now I did find a note within some of the documentation for FT8CN that if you actually hit that loudspeaker or enable transmission more than 2.5 seconds into the cycle, it will wait until the following cycle to transmit. And if you want to stop transmission, hit it again and the loudspeaker symbol goes grayed out. So if you hit these 3 bars here, it will allow you to choose one of the standard FT8 frequencies, and with the rig control to the true SDX, it will set it on the true SDX. So a fast way to go between different frequencies and such. And cancel it here. Now, since I don't have the true SDX hooked up right now, I don't want to try to send something and watch the program go a little funky here. If you want to exit FT8CN, you can hit your back arrow once or twice, and you finally come up to the, are you sure you want to exit? You can either cancel and drop the dialog box, or go ahead and hit exit, and you come back to your standard, or you just come back to your screen on your Android. And there we have it. That's how you set up and use FT8CN. What I do intend to do is, once the weather turns a little bit more hospitable, it's been raining this weekend, is get myself at least out into the backyard with the true SDX, USB cable on my cell phone, and give FT8 a true workout and see you know, all the little tips and tricks. And I'm going to relay that to you in a future video on how to use FT8CN. Calling CQ on FT8CN, I had my home station set up and I did receive it there. So I do know the data is going out, it is receivable. One thing I did find though is when I initially started using the program, after I had it all installed and all the permissions granted, it actually was not generating any data going out. And I found that I not only had to close the program, but I had to go into my Android cell phone's application list and actually go and swipe it off the screen and completely close it out and then restart it. That solved everything, and now the program has been working like a champ. One thing I do have to point out, FT8CN, as far as I know, is only for Android phones. I'm not sure if there's anything available that will do something similar on iPhones. Hey, thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time. Remember, I'm trying to help you make the outdoors your ham shack. This is Mark AA3K 73.